The most important thing before getting started to weld is having a good ground. So just like basic electricity, we're going to have our positive, which is our wire right here. So this point is going to have current flowing through it. And then we're going to have our negative, which is what we call our grounding clamp. So we have to have good contact between both of these surfaces, or both of these pieces, in order to have good weld. So we want to make sure that we're starting with our base metal as clean as possible. Arc welding, we can kind of get away with that due to the fact that we could use higher amperage to bust through that rust or through that paint or through that grease. However, with MIG welding, we don't have that luxury. This is a cleaner type of weld, so we need a good solid ground. So we want to place our grounding clamp fairly near our work. We talked about having that welding table, which if we have a small delicate piece, we could clamp to that welding table and then weld, or if we have a larger type of work piece, we could physically clamp right to that. So in this case, I'll just use my workbench here, which is solid plate steel, just to illustrate that we can clamp to this and ground to this. So when we're getting ready to weld, and we want to have a good clean surface on our clamp, as well as a good clean surface from what we're going to weld on. So you could utilize a couple different techniques, just like oxyacetylene welding. It's a good idea to have a good leather work glove. We don't want to have this conduct heat into our fingers. We're pushing a lot of electrical current. Wearing a glove is not for the fact of getting electrocuted. It's more for the fact of protecting our hands from the intense heat and the hot weld splatter that will be generated when welding. So just kind of get into a good position. You could use your left hand or your non-working hand, which isn't on the trigger, to help and hold the gun. And we kind of want to use this, and as we enter into our work, again, we could even touch our work with the machine on and nothing's going to happen. And as soon as we push our trigger, then we will then dispense that line or that wire through the gun. So as we dispense that wire through the gun, again, I'm not going to weld because once I do weld, you're not even going to be able to see anything. So unfortunately, you guys aren't going to be able to get the feel of this, but if you do get an opportunity at one of your maintenance shops, have your mechanic let you guys as well. So you want to hold the gun and kind of have that wire almost at a 45. We could even have it a little bit more vertical, almost to about 70 degrees or even 80 degrees. And it's all about preference on how you guys want to weld. So we could either push that weld forward, again, which is going to put more heat into the work, or we could then pull that weld backwards, which will then kind of get more filler material because we're working on the cool side. So just like that video with the stick welding, we could do different techniques in order to get different types of penetration or different results. However, this way we could just say we're pulling through. So a good technique is to use small circles. So as we use those small circles, we're kind of coming around, creating that heat in front. We're then dispensing that material, coming back around, preheating the backside while dispensing that material on the front side. Another good method is a Z method, just like stick welding, where we would start and kind of work our way around to fill in that gap. Again, a Z method is, in my opinion, a little bit easier to kind of master than the small circles because you got to have a pretty tight hand and eye coordination to, again, get those to line where we're going to line. But all in all, this is going to be the easier type method. It is basically like hot glue gunning steel, because all we do have is a trigger that we're depressing and we can turn this on and off. We're not relying on striking an arc or getting that poke or that scratch in order to get this going. As soon as we place that trigger, we're going to have that electrical current flowing through, and then we're going to start melting our wire.